The mining colony of Kelthor 9 sat like a small jewel in the middle of nowhere. For 30 years humans had called this place home. They weren't living in fancy buildings or high-tech cities. No, life here was simple and hard. Every morning, the miners would head down into the valleys where the ground was rich with minerals that Earth needed. They'd drill, extract, and haul until their backs ached. The families carved homes right into the cliff sides, making the rock itself their shelter. At night, they'd sit outside and look up at stars that weren't the ones their great-grandparents had seen. This was their world now. But the humans weren't alone on Kelthor 9. On the eastern mountain something else lived. Something that had been there long before the first human shuttle ever touched down on this alien soil. The colonists saw it on their second day after landing. A creature so massive that it seemed impossible. Nearly 200 meters from the tip of its snout all the way back to the end of its tail. Its scales caught the sunlight in the strangest way, shimmering and reflecting like thousands of pieces of broken glass. Some scales were deep blue, others green, and some seemed to shift colors depending on how the light hit them. When the first settlers saw it, they panicked. They thought it would attack. They prepared weapons and shelters. But the creature did nothing. It just lay there on the mountainside, completely still except for the slow rise and fall of its breathing. Days passed. Then weeks. The thing never moved toward the colony. Never showed aggression. The scientists started calling it the Guardian, because it seemed to be watching over the valley. But as years went by and nothing dramatic happened, people got used to it. The fancy name got shortened. Everyone just called it the Dragon now. The dragon had a problem though. Anyone who looked closely enough could see it. The creature was blind. Its eyes were huge, each one as tall as a grown man, but they were completely clouded over. Gray and milky like something had died inside them. There was no light, no awareness, no sight. The dragon never hunted for food. It never spread its massive wings and took to the sky like you'd think such a creature should. It just existed there on the mountain, barely moving, barely living. Sometimes it would let out these low sounds, deep rumbles that came from somewhere in its chest. The vibrations would travel through the ground and shake the entire colony. Windows would rattle. Cups would slide across tables. Children would grab onto their parents. But the dragon meant no harm. It was just there, trapped in its own darkness. The scientists wanted to study it up close, but they were too nervous. They'd watch from far away with their cameras and sensors. The miners who worked the eastern valleys would take long routes to avoid getting too near. It wasn't that they thought the dragon would hurt them exactly. It was more like an unspoken rule. You don't bother something that big, something that old, something you don't understand. The children though, they'd whisper stories about it during school. They'd make up tales about where it came from, why it was blind, whether it was waiting for something. Kid stuff. Imagination filling in the blanks that science couldn't answer. But there was one kid who was different. 12-year-old Lily Bennett didn't whisper stories from a safe distance. She wasn't scared of the dragon. Maybe it was because of her grandmother. Maybe it was something else. Whatever the reason, Lily felt drawn to that mountain, to that creature, in a way nobody else did. Her grandmother, Dr. Helen Bennett, had been the colony's chief biologist before she passed away last winter. Helen had been obsessed with the dragon. She'd spent years, almost a decade, studying it. She'd hike up to the mountain with her equipment, take samples of the air around it, measure its breathing patterns, sketch every detail she could see. She filled notebook after notebook with observations, theories, and questions. Helen had been convinced that the dragon wasn't just some animal. There was something more to it, something important. She'd talk about it at dinner until Lily's father would joke that the dragon was her grandmother's favorite family member. When Helen died, those notebooks came to Lily. Boxes of them. Some people thought a 12-year-old wouldn't care about scientific journals, but they were wrong. Lily treasured them. They were the last connection she had to her grandmother, and they were filled with mysteries begging to be solved. Tonight, Lily sat on her bunk in the small room she shared with her little brother. He was already asleep in the bed across from her. Her father, Tom, was working the night shift at the processing plant like he did 3 times a week. The habitat module was quiet except for the hum of the air recyclers and the occasional ping of the cooling systems. Lily had a small lamp clipped to her bed frame, and in its yellow light she read her grandmother's words for the 100th time. The pages were worn now. Some had smudges from Lily's fingers. Others had corners folded down where she'd marked something important. She turned to an entry from 5 years ago. Her grandmother's handwriting was neat and careful, the way scientists wrote when they knew their notes might matter someday. Day 847. The ocular structure is remarkable. Similar to Earth reptiles, specifically the iguana family. The crystalline layer suggests advanced light processing capabilities, but the damage appears irreversible by natural means. Lily had looked up every word she didn't know when she first read this. She understood it now. Her grandmother had discovered that the dragon's eyes were built like the eyes of lizards back on Earth. That crystalline layer was supposed to help it see in different kinds of light, maybe even see things humans couldn't. But something had damaged it. Badly. And whatever that damage was, it wasn't healing on its own. She flipped ahead several pages. More sketches filled the margins. Her grandmother had been a good artist. There were detailed drawings of the dragon's eye from every angle she could manage. Comparisons with iguana anatomy. Notes about the similarities and differences. Questions written in the margins with multiple question marks. Then Lily reached the entry that always made her pause. Day 1203, if only I had the proper compounds. The regenerative drops we used for the rescue iguanas back on Earth might work, but it's too dangerous to approach. The creature is gentle, but one wrong move. The sentence just stopped. Her grandmother never finished that thought. Lily wondered what she'd been about to write. One wrong move and what? One wrong move and the dragon might react? One wrong move and the whole thing would be too risky? One wrong move and someone could get hurt? Lily closed the notebook gently and looked across the small room. On the shelf above her desk sat her grandmother's medical kit. It was a sturdy plastic case, the kind designed to last through rough field conditions. Her father had asked if she wanted to put it in storage with the rest of Helen's equipment, but Lily had insisted on keeping it. She got up quietly, not wanting to wake her brother, and took the kit down from the shelf. She set it on her bunk and opened the latches. Inside, everything was organized perfectly. That was just like her grandmother. Vials of different solutions, each one labeled in that same neat handwriting. Syringes in sterile packaging. Tools that Lily didn't even know the names for. And there, in a special foam holder, 3 bottles of eye drops. She picked one up carefully. The label was faded now, but she could still read it. Reptilian Regenerative Formula, Earth Origin. Her grandmother had brought these from Earth. They were for treating injured reptiles, probably from some rescue center or research facility back home. Lily turned the bottle over in her hands. The liquid inside was clear, maybe with a slight yellow tint. It didn't look like much. Just medicine. But her grandmother had thought maybe, just maybe, this could help the dragon. Lily walked to the small window in her room. It faced east toward the mountain. The colony's lights created a soft glow around the buildings, but beyond that, everything was darkness and starlight. She could see the outline of the mountain against the sky. And if she looked carefully, she could just barely make out the shape of the dragon, lying still as it always did. I could try, Lily whispered to the empty room. Her breath fogged the window slightly. Grandma wanted to help. She just ran out of time. The thought wouldn't leave her head. Her grandmother had spent years studying this creature, trying to understand it, wanting to heal it. She'd figured out what might work but had been too cautious to attempt it. And now she was gone. The dragon was still there, still blind, still alone in its darkness. And Lily had the medicine sitting right here in her hands. She knew it was probably crazy. She knew her father would lose his mind if he found out she was even thinking about it. But as she stood there looking at that mountain, Lily felt something her grandmother must have felt too. A pull. A need to do something. To at least try. Lily waited until the weekend. She'd thought it through carefully. Her father worked double shifts on Saturdays, leaving early in the morning and not coming back until late evening. That gave her the whole day. Enough time to hike up the mountain, try what she needed to try and get back before anyone noticed she was gone. Her little brother would be at his friend's house playing games like he did every Saturday. Nobody would miss her. Friday night she barely slept. She kept thinking about what could go wrong. What if the dragon woke up angry? What if she slipped and fell? What if the medicine didn't work and she'd risked everything for nothing? But every time doubt crept in, she'd think about her grandmother's notebook. About all those years of research. About that unfinished sentence. Her grandmother had wanted to do this but hadn't been able to. Maybe Lily could finish what she started. Saturday morning came with clear skies. Lily packed her grandmother's medical kit carefully into her backpack. She added 2 bottles of water, some protein bars, and 50 feet of rope she'd quietly borrowed from the equipment shed on Friday afternoon. The hardest part was getting the portable ladder. It was a telescoping one, used for maintenance work around the colony. She'd told old Mr. Peterson she needed it to fix something on her roof. He'd believed her without question. Kids didn't usually lie in the colony. Everyone trusted everyone. That made Lily feel guilty but not guilty enough to stop. The hike started easy. There was a worn path that the miners used to access some of the eastern work sites. Lily followed that for the first hour. The morning air was cool and smelled different than Earth air. She couldn't quite describe it. Cleaner maybe. Or just alien. Her boots crunched on the gravelly soil. In the distance, she could hear the processing plant humming. Her father was in there somewhere, working with machinery and numbers, having no idea what his daughter was planning. After the first hour, the path ended. Now she was climbing. The mountain wasn't terribly steep here, but it was rough. Lots of loose rocks. She had to watch every step. The backpack felt heavier with each minute. Her legs started burning. She'd done some hiking before, but nothing like this. At one point she slipped, catching herself with her hands and scraping her palm against a sharp rock. It bled a little. She wiped it on her pants and kept going. 2 hours after leaving the colony, Lily reached the dragon's resting place. It was a natural plateau on the mountainside, flat enough for something that large to lie comfortably. And there it was. The dragon. Even though she'd seen it from a distance her whole life, being this close was different. Way different. The creature was enormous. That word didn't even do it justice. It was like standing next to a building, except buildings didn't breathe. The dragon's chest rose and fell slowly, each breath like a wave. She could hear the air moving in and out of its lungs. The sound was deep and steady. The scales that covered its body were incredible up close. Each one was the size of a dinner plate, maybe bigger. They overlapped in patterns that seemed almost mathematical. The colors shifted as clouds moved across the sun. Blue, then green, then purple, then back to blue. Lily stood there for a moment, just taking it in. The dragon didn't react to her presence. It seemed to be sleeping or something like sleeping. Its clouded eyes were closed. She could see the texture of its eyelids, leathery and ancient. "Hey there," Lily said softly. Her voice sounded small in the open air. "I'm Helen's granddaughter. She spent a lot of time studying you. She wanted to help you. I'm going to try to do what she couldn't." The dragon's head shifted slightly. Just a small movement, but it made Lily's heart jump. Then came a sound from deep within its chest. A low rumble that she felt in her bones more than heard with her ears. The ground vibrated beneath her feet. But it wasn't aggressive. It didn't feel like a warning. It felt more like the dragon was acknowledging her somehow. Like it knew she was there and was okay with it. Lily took a breath and got to work. She pulled out the telescoping ladder and extended it to its full length. There was a large rock formation near the dragon's head, weathered and stable. She positioned the ladder against it, testing it a few times to make sure it wouldn't slip. Her hands were shaking. She noticed and felt annoyed at herself. Be brave, she thought. Grandma would be brave. The climb up the ladder was the scariest part. Each step felt wobbly even though the ladder was secure. She kept her eyes up, not looking down. The dragon's eye got closer and closer. It was closed, but she could see the clouded surface through the translucent eyelid. The eye itself was as tall as she was, maybe taller. The cloudiness was thick, like a gray fog trapped inside. At the top of the ladder, Lily carefully pulled her grandmother's medical kit from her backpack. Her fingers fumbled with the latches. The bottle of eye drops almost slipped from her grip. She caught it at the last second. The label was faded, but she could still read her grandmother's handwriting. 3 to 5 drops, twice daily. "Okay," Lily breathed out slowly. "Please don't eat me. Please don't wake up angry. Please let this work." She waited for the dragon's eye to open slightly. It took a few minutes, but eventually the massive eyelid lifted just enough. That clouded, gray surface was right in front of her now. Lily positioned the bottle and squeezed. 1 drop fell. Then 2, 3, 4, 5. Each drop hit the surface of the eye and spread across it. The dragon flinched. The whole body tensed for a second. Lily nearly fell off the ladder. But then the creature went still again. It held itself completely motionless, as if it understood something important was happening. Lily climbed down as fast as she could without being reckless. Her heart was hammering so hard she thought it might burst. She stepped away from the ladder, watching the dragon carefully. Nothing happened. The dragon blinked once. It was the slowest blink Lily had ever seen. The massive eyelid came down, stayed down for several seconds, then lifted again. After that, the creature settled back into its resting position. The breathing resumed its slow, steady rhythm. Everything went back to how it was before. Lily felt disappointment wash over her. She'd hoped for something immediate. Some sign that it worked. But there was nothing. Just a blind dragon and a kid who'd hiked 2 hours for no reason. Still, her grandmother's note said twice daily. Lily would have to come back. She returned the next day. Sunday. Same hike, same climb, same routine. The dragon stayed peaceful. 5 drops on the eye. No reaction except that same slight flinch. She climbed down, waited, watched. Nothing changed. Monday she told her father she was going hiking to clear her head. He said that was fine, just be careful. The third trip up the mountain. By now she knew the route well. The difficult parts, where to step, where the rocks were loose. She reached the plateau, climbed the ladder, administered the drops. The dragon's behavior was the same. Patient. So. Like it was waiting for something. On the third day Lily noticed something. She was about to leave when she took one last look at the dragon's eye. The cloudiness seemed different. Lighter somehow. She moved closer, squinting. Yes, definitely lighter. And underneath the gray there were hints of color. Ember maybe. Or gold. Something warm and alive that hadn't been there before. It's working, Lily whispered. Oh my God, it's actually working. She came back on the fourth day even though it was a school day. She told her teacher she was sick. She hiked up the mountain faster than ever before. The change was more obvious now. The cloudiness was breaking up. She could see more color underneath. The dragon seemed different too. More aware somehow. Its breathing had changed rhythm slightly. On the fifth day, Lily made the climb with her heart in her throat. She reached the plateau and stopped cold. The dragon's eye was open. Not just partially open. Fully open. And it was clear. The cloudiness was completely gone. The eye was a brilliant amber color with flecks of gold throughout. The pupil was massive and black, and it was contracting and adjusting to the light. The dragon was seeing. After centuries of darkness, the creature could actually see. The eye moved. It focused. And then it looked directly at Lily. She froze completely. Couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The intelligence in that gaze was overwhelming. This wasn't an animal looking at her. This was something ancient and aware beyond anything she'd imagined. The dragon's massive head began to move. Lily's instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs wouldn't work. The head lowered slowly, carefully, with complete control. It came down and down until it touched the ground right in front of her. The dragon was bowing. To her. A creature that could destroy the entire colony with a thought was bowing to a 12-year-old girl. Tears started running down Lily's cheeks before she even realized she was crying. They weren't tears of fear. They were something else. Relief, joy, wonder. All mixed together. You're welcome, Lily whispered, her voice breaking. You're so welcome. 3 days after the dragon regained its sight, the world changed. Lily was sitting in Mrs. Patterson's science class, barely paying attention to the lesson about orbital mechanics. She was tired. The past week of hiking up and down that mountain had worn her out, and she'd been staying up late every night writing in her own notebook, documenting everything that happened. She was trying to record it the way her grandmother would have. Detailed. Precise. Scientific. But her handwriting kept getting messy because her hand would cramp up. Then the alarms started. They weren't the regular bells that signaled the end of class or lunchtime. These were the emergency alarms that Lily had only heard during drills. Loud, piercing sirens that made everyone cover their ears. The lights in the classroom switched from normal white to flashing red. Kids started looking around nervously. Some of the younger students looked scared. Mrs. Patterson's communication panel beeped urgently. She pressed the button and Principal Anderson's voice came through, crackling with static and tension. All students to the central bunker immediately. Teachers, initiate emergency protocol 7. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. The classroom erupted in noise. Kids talking over each other, asking questions, some starting to panic. Mrs. Patterson raised her voice, trying to sound calm but not quite managing it. Everyone line up at the door. Stay together. Move quickly but don't run. Everything's going to be fine. But her face said something different. Lily had known Mrs. Patterson her whole life. The teacher was scared, trying to hide it and failing. They filed out into the hallway where other classes were doing the same thing. The whole school moving like a river toward the central bunker. The bunker was built into the ground beneath the main administration building. It was designed for emergencies like asteroid impacts, equipment failures that could breach the habitat domes, or attacks from hostile forces. That last one was always theoretical. Until now, maybe. The bunker was crowded and loud. Hundreds of kids packed into a space meant to hold them but not comfortably. Emergency lights cast everything in a weird yellow glow. Teachers were trying to keep everyone organized, calling out names, making sure no one was missing. Lily pushed through the crowd looking for her father. She knew he'd come. He always came when something was wrong. She found him near the back wall, standing with other parents who'd rushed over from their workstations. Tom looked pale. More pale than she'd ever seen him. His work jumpsuit had grease stains on it. He'd clearly run straight from the processing plant without even cleaning up. Dad. Lily pushed her way to him. What's happening? Tom pulled her close, one arm around her shoulders. Ships, he said quietly, like he didn't want the other kids to hear and panic more. Thousands of them. They just appeared at the edge of the system. Ships. Like whose ships? Earth's? We don't know. Nobody knows. Lily felt her stomach drop. Are they attacking? Not yet. They're just sitting there. In the command center 2 levels above them, Administrator Richard Walsh was having the worst day of his career. He'd been managing this colony for 12 years. Dealt with equipment breakdowns, medical emergencies, supply shortages, interpersonal conflicts, and even one attempted murder over a gambling debt. But this was beyond anything he'd trained for. The main display screen dominated one wall of the command center. It showed a tactical map of their star system. Kelthra 9 was marked as a blue dot. The sun was at the center. And at the edge, near the asteroid belt, was a mass of red contacts that made Walsh's blood run cold. Final count? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Lieutenant Barnes, their head of security, checked his console. 13,000 distinct signatures, sir. All reading as capital-class vessels. Each one is at least 3 kilometers long. Some are bigger. Someone in the back of the room swore quietly. Energy readings? Walsh asked. Off the charts, said Dr. Nathan Cooper, the colony's senior scientist. Cooper was a nervous man on good days. Right now he looked like he might pass out. Their power signatures suggest technology centuries beyond ours. Maybe more. I've never seen anything like this. Are they hostile? Asked Commander Stevens, who'd served in Earth's defense forces before retiring to colony life. They're not shooting, Barnes said. But they're not responding to our hails either. We've tried every frequency we know. Standard protocols, emergency channels, even old Earth languages in case there's some kind of translation issue. Nothing. They're just silent. What about their formation? Stevens moved closer to the screen, studying the pattern. Are they arranged for attack? Barnes shook his head. That's the weird part. They're not in any military formation I recognize. They're just clustered together, holding position. Not advancing, not retreating. Just waiting. Waiting for what? Walsh demanded, knowing nobody had an answer but needing to ask anyway. That's when the ground started shaking. It was subtle at first. Just a small vibration that made coffee cups rattle on desks. But it grew stronger. The whole command center began to tremble. Equipment beeped warnings. Someone grabbed onto a console to steady themselves. Seismic activity? Walsh asked. No, sir. Barnes checked his readings. It's not geological. The source is. He paused, his face going even more pale. It's coming from the eastern mountain. Walsh felt ice in his veins. The dragon. For the first time in decades, the dragon was moving. Everyone in the colony could feel it. The creature that had been still as a statue for longer than most people had been alive was now climbing. Its massive body shifted, scaled feet finding purchase on rock. Each movement sent vibrations through the mountain and down into the valley where the colony sat. In the bunker, kids were crying. Adults were trying to comfort them while dealing with their own fear. Lily held onto her father's arm. What's that? Is it an earthquake? Tom didn't answer. He was looking up at the ceiling, feeling the vibrations, and his expression was strange. Confused. Worried. But also something else. Like he was putting pieces together. Lily, he said slowly. The dragon. Have you been going up to see it? Lily's face went hot. Dad, I can explain. Did you do something to it? I helped it. I used Grandma's medicine. Its eyes were blind and Another massive vibration cut her off. Dust fell from the ceiling. The emergency lights flickered. Back in the command center, Dr. Cooper was staring at his audio analysis equipment. Sir, you need to hear this. He played it through the speakers. Deep sounds so low they were almost below human hearing. But there was pattern to them. Structure. It wasn't just noise. It was communication. The dragon is transmitting something, Cooper said, his voice shaking. Some kind of signal. It's being broadcast into space on frequencies we barely even use. Can you decode it? Walsh asked. It's not meant for us. It's too complex, too layered. But it's definitely intentional. This is language, sir. The dragon is talking to someone. Commander Stevens stepped forward, his military training taking over. Are those ships responding? Barnes checked his console and went very still. Sir. One of the vessels just detached from the main fleet. It's entering the system. Current trajectory puts it on a course directly for us. The room went silent except for the beeping of equipment and the distant rumbling from the mountain. Walsh made a decision. Sound general quarters. Get everyone in shelters. Activate what defenses we have. And someone get me a direct line to Earth Command. Sir, Earth is 3 weeks away even at maximum FTL. By the time any message reaches them. I know, Walsh interrupted. But we need to tell someone what's happening here. If this goes bad, Earth needs to know. He looked back at the screen. The single ship was growing larger as it approached. Behind it, 13,000 more waited in silence. What do they want? Someone whispered. On the eastern mountain, the dragon reached the highest peak. Its clear amber eyes looked up at the sky, at the approaching ship, at the fleet beyond. And it called out again, its voice carrying across the valley and up into space. A sound of recognition, of greeting, of something that might have been joy. In the bunker below, Lily understood something that the adults didn't yet. This wasn't an invasion. The ships weren't here to attack. They were here because of what she'd done. Because she'd helped the dragon see again. Dad, she said quietly. I think they're here because of me. Tom looked down at his daughter, confused. Around them, people were praying, holding each other, preparing for the worst. None of them knew that everything was about to change. On the 7th day after the fleet appeared, everything came to a head. The waiting had been unbearable. For a week, the colonists lived in a state of constant tension. People slept in their clothes. Emergency bags stayed packed by every door. Parents kept their children close. Work at the mines had stopped completely. Nobody wanted to be caught outside if something bad happened. The 13,000 ships just sat there at the edge of the system, silent and waiting. It was the waiting that made it worse. If they were going to attack, why didn't they just attack? The not knowing was driving everyone crazy. Then, on the morning of the 7th day, one ship moved. It detached from the massive fleet like a single drop of water breaking away from a cloud. The colony's sensors tracked it immediately. Every screen in the command center showed the same thing. The ship was coming toward them. Fast. The vessel was enormous. The computer calculated it at just over 3 kilometers long. To put that in perspective, the entire colony could fit inside it with room to spare. But what really caught everyone's attention was what it was made of. The hull wasn't metal like human ships. It looked crystalline, almost like glass, but it caught and reflected light in ways that seemed impossible. Blues and greens and purples shifted across its surface. It looked organic somehow. Alive. It's beautiful, someone in the command center whispered. It's also heading straight for us, Commander Stevens said. Defensive positions. Now. The ship entered the atmosphere without slowing down. It should have burned up. It should have created a sonic boom that shattered windows. It should have screamed through the sky like a meteor. But it didn't. It just descended smoothly, silently, as if the air itself was getting out of its way. As if gravity was being polite and letting it through. The physics didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. It landed on the wide plain below the eastern mountain. The impact should have created a crater. Should have kicked up dust and debris. Should have shaken the ground like an earthquake. Instead, it touched down as gently as a feather. The landing struts extended and the massive ship settled into place like it had done this 1,000 times before. For a long moment, nothing happened. The ship just sat there. The colony held its breath. Then a section of the hull opened. Not with mechanical sounds like doors on human ships. It just opened, the crystalline material flowing aside like water. Light spilled out from inside, bright and warm. And they emerged. Lily was standing on the colony's outer wall with her father and what seemed like half the population. Everyone had come to see. Whatever was about to happen, they needed to witness it. She gripped the railing so hard her knuckles went white. The beings that came out of the ship looked like the dragon. Smaller, maybe 50 meters long instead of 200, but definitely the same species. They moved with grace despite their size. Their scales were incredible, catching the sunlight and throwing it back in prismatic patterns that hurt to look at directly. But what really amazed Lily was the technology. It wasn't separate from them. It was part of them. Devices were embedded into their wings, so seamlessly integrated you couldn't tell where biology ended and technology began. Interfaces ran along their spines, glowing softly. Near their heads were mounted what looked like translator devices, mechanical but elegant. There were 5 of them total. They arranged themselves in a line facing the colony. Behind them, their ship hummed with quiet power. Administrator Walsh had assembled a team to meet them. Security personnel, scientists, anyone who might be useful. They stood on the plain looking tiny compared to the visitors. Walsh himself was trying to project confidence, but Lily could see from even this distance that his hands were shaking. The largest of the beings stepped forward. Or maybe stepped wasn't the right word. Moved forward. It lowered its head slightly, and when it spoke, the voice didn't come from its mouth. It came from the translator device, rendered in perfect, clear English with just a slight harmonic quality underneath. "We are the Kelthurii," the being said. The voice was neither male nor female, but something else. Ancient. Powerful. "We have traveled far across the dark between stars. We seek Velthara, crown keeper of the eternal memory, elder of the third age." Walsh looked at his team, confused. Dr. Cooper shrugged. Nobody recognized the name. "We don't know anyone by that name," Walsh said carefully. "This is a human mining colony. We've been here 30 years. Just us and—" "She is here," the Kelthurii interrupted, not rudely but with certainty. Its head turned toward the eastern mountain, toward the peak where the dragon had climbed. "We have heard her call. Her voice crosses the void as it has not in millennia." Walsh followed the being's gaze. Understanding started to dawn on his face. "The dragon? You're talking about the creature on the mountain?" "Velthara is not a creature," the Kelthurii said, and there was something in its voice now. Not anger exactly, but correction. Firmness. "She is an elder. She is the memory of our people. She is the keeper of our history, our genetics, our very existence as a species." The being took another step forward. The ground trembled slightly under its weight. 2,000 of your years ago, Velthara was on pilgrimage to this region of space. She was studying the formation of your sun, documenting the early stages of planetary development in this system. It was a routine journey. She had made thousands like it. Lily stood in the colony's central plaza feeling like she might throw up. Her father stood beside her with one hand on her shoulder, trying to be supportive, but she could feel him shaking too. The entire colony had gathered around them. Thousands of people formed a massive circle, all watching, all waiting to see what would happen next. Administrator Walsh had tried to make excuses. He'd spent 10 minutes explaining to the Kelthurii that this was just a child, that it was an accident really, an experiment, nothing official or authorized by the colony. He was trying to protect her, Lily realized. Trying to make sure she didn't get in trouble with these massive alien beings. But the Kelthurii weren't interested in excuses. They insisted on meeting the healer. That's what they kept calling her. The healer. Like she was some kind of doctor or sage instead of a 12-year-old kid who just wanted to help. The lead Kelthurii, who'd introduced himself as Cowran through his translator device, moved closer. Each step made the ground tremble slightly. He was enormous, 50 meters of scaled muscle and integrated technology, and he was coming right toward Lily. People in the crowd backed up nervously. Her father's grip on her shoulder tightened, but he didn't pull her away. He was letting her face this. Cowran lowered his massive head until it was level with Lily. This close she could see every detail. The scales that shifted color in the light. The amber eyes that held intelligence beyond anything human. The way the translator device was mounted near his head, organic and mechanical at the same time. Those eyes studied her with an intensity that made her want to look away, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. "You are young," Cowran said. His voice through the translator was strange. Not quite male or female, but something else. Ancient. Like it carried weight from beyond time. "I'm 12, Lily replied. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted, but at least it didn't shake too much. 12 cycles around your star, Cowran said as if calculating. A child by your species measure. Yet you accomplished what our greatest medical minds deemed impossible." He tilted his head slightly. "Tell me how you restored Velthara's sight." Lily took a breath. She'd been going over this in her head all morning, trying to figure out what to say. "My grandmother was Dr. Helen Bennett. She was the colony's chief biologist. She studied Velthara for years, trying to understand her." "Velthara allowed this study?" Cowran asked. "She never stopped her. Never seemed bothered by it. My grandmother would hike up the mountain and take measurements and make sketches. She filled notebooks with research." Lily felt tears starting but pushed them back. "She died last winter. Left me all her work." "I grieve for your loss," Cowran said, and it sounded genuine. "Continue." "In her notes, my grandmother wrote that Velthara's eye structure was similar to reptiles from Earth. Lizards specifically. She thought maybe medicine from Earth might help, but she was too afraid to try. She thought it was too dangerous." Lily pulled her grandmother's medical kit from her backpack. Her hands were steady now. "These are eye drops. Regenerative formula for injured reptiles. My grandmother used them at a rescue center back on Earth before coming here." She held up one of the bottles. The label was faded, the handwriting barely readable, but it was there. Evidence of what her grandmother had hoped to do. I read her notes. I saw the medicine. I thought maybe I could finish what she started. Lily looked up at Calren. So I hiked up the mountain. I climbed a ladder to reach Velthara's eye. And I put the drops in. 5 drops twice a day for 5 days. That's what the instructions said for Earth animals. The Kelthurii listened in complete silence. When Lily finished, Calren made a sound that didn't come from the translator. It was a deep, resonant note that vibrated in her chest. The other 4 Kelthurii behind him echoed it, creating a harmonic that was almost music. You used medicine designed for small creatures of your world, Calren said slowly, like he was trying to comprehend it. Simple compounds meant for animals that fit in your hand. And you approached an elder, a being who could have ended your existence with a single breath, because you saw suffering and wished to ease it. My grandmother wanted to help, Lily said. I just finished what she started. That's all. Calren made another sound different this time. That is not all, young human. That is everything. Movement on the mountain caught everyone's attention. Velthara was descending. The ancient elder moved with a grace that hadn't been there before. She was fully awake now, fully aware, and she was coming down to the plaza. The crowd gasped and many people stepped back, creating more space. But Lily held her ground. She touched this being's eye. She'd been vulnerable in front of her. She wasn't going to be afraid now. Velthara entered the plaza and the sheer size of her made everything else seem small. She was 4 times the size of the other Kelthurii, ancient and powerful in ways Lily couldn't fully understand. But those amber eyes were clear now. Clear and seeing. And they were looking at Lily with something that might have been affection. The elder lowered her head, bringing it down until it was level with Lily, just as Calren had done. But when Velthara spoke through Calren's translator, the voice was different. Deeper. Layered with harmonics that suggested unimaginable age and wisdom. In 4 million years of existence, Velthara said, I have witnessed the rise and fall of 3,000 species across the stars. I have seen empires that spanned galaxies born in fire and hope. I have watched civilizations fade into dust and memory. I carry within me the genetic memory of our people. The histories of countless worlds. The knowledge of ages before your son was born. The plaza was so quiet Lily could hear her own heartbeat. Velthara's eye focused on her with impossible intensity. Never in all those ages, across all those worlds, among all those species, have I encountered a people so young who still possessed such instinctive compassion. You knew nothing of what I was. Nothing of my importance to my people. Nothing of the power I hold. Yet you saw suffering and you chose kindness. Your grandmother sought understanding, not exploitation. She studied me with respect. This is rare, young one. This is precious beyond measure. Calren stepped forward again. Velthara has requested that we honor this deed. The Kelthurii do not forget debts. What does humanity desire? Name your price, and if it is within our power, it shall be yours. Lily looked at her father. Tom nodded slightly, telling her it was okay to speak. She looked back at Calren, at Velthara, at these impossible beings offering impossible things. Could you teach us? Lily asked. The words came out smaller than she intended but clear enough. About space? About other worlds? About the galaxy? She thought of her grandmother's notebooks, filled with questions that would never be answered. My grandmother wanted to understand everything out there. She spent her whole life asking questions about the universe. She never got the chance to know most of the answers. The Kelthurii conferred among themselves. They spoke in their own language, a cascade of harmonic notes that rose and fell like music. The discussion went on for several minutes. Lily couldn't understand the words but she could hear the debate in their tones. Some seemed uncertain. Others more supportive. It was clearly not a simple decision. Finally, Calren turned back to the humans. Knowledge can be dangerous to young species, he said, and Lily's heart sank. We have seen civilizations destroy themselves with technology they were not ready for. We have watched peoples tear themselves apart with weapons they should never have possessed. The gift of knowledge is not always a gift of mercy. Lily felt disappointment crushing down on her. They were going to say no. But then Velthara made another sound. It cut through the debate like a blade, sharp and commanding. She spoke directly to the assembled Kelthurii in their own language, a cascade of notes that seemed to contain layers and layers of meaning. The sound went on for almost a minute, complex and beautiful and undeniable. The other Kelthurii listened. Calren's head bowed. When he turned back to the humans, something had changed in his posture, his demeanor, everything about him. Velthara has made her judgment, Calren said. She carries the authority of the eternal memory. She is an elder of the third age. Her word is law among our people. We do not question. We do not debate further. He looked at Lily, then at Administrator Walsh, then at the gathered crowd of humans watching with hope and fear mixed together. The fleet will not leave your space, Calren announced. Instead, we will establish what you might call an embassy. A place of exchange. Of learning. We will share our knowledge of medicine. Of engineering. Of the sciences your people have not yet discovered. We will teach you the history of the galaxy. We will introduce you to the other civilizations among the stars. We will show you your place in the great community of thinking beings. People in the crowd started murmuring. Some with excitement. Others with disbelief. Calren raised his voice slightly. But understand this. We will not give you weapons. We will not make you powerful overnight. We will not hand you technology you are not ready to understand. What we offer is the chance to grow. To learn. To become what your potential suggests you might be. Because a species capable of this, he gestured to Lily, to Velthara, to the simple act that had bridged two civilizations, deserves that opportunity. The plaza erupted. Cheers and questions and exclamations of joy and disbelief all mixed together into noise that washed over everything. People were hugging each other. Some were crying. Others were laughing. The whole colony was experiencing the same overwhelming emotion at once. Lily felt her father pull her into a tight hug. She realized she was crying but wasn't sure when that had started. Everything felt too big. Too impossible. Too much to process. Her grandmother's simple research had led to this. Her decision to climb a mountain with eye drops had changed everything. Velthara made one final sound. Gentle. Approving. A deep rumble that somehow conveyed warmth despite coming from a creature so massive and alien. Calren translated. She says your grandmother would be proud. That's when Lily really started sobbing. 6 months later, everything had changed. The Kelthrii embassy station orbited Kelthra 9 like a second moon. It was beautiful, a gleaming structure made of that same crystalline material as their ships, catching sunlight and throwing it back in colors that didn't quite exist in nature. Inside, humans and Kelthrii worked side by side. Scientists collaborated on projects. Engineers learned new principles. Teachers from both species shared knowledge. Lily, still only 12 but somehow feeling much older, attended special classes 3 days a week. She'd board a shuttle that would take her up to the station where beings who had studied life across thousands of worlds taught her xenobiology. They showed her species that evolved in ways Earth life never had. They explained genetics and chemistry and physics that human science was only beginning to understand. In the embassy's central archive, her grandmother's notebooks were displayed in a place of honor. Simple spiral-bound journals with hand-drawn sketches, sitting in a case surrounded by data crystals containing the knowledge of 4 million years. The Kelthrii called it the Bridgepoint Collection. The simple research that had connected two civilizations. Velthara remained on the mountain most days but she was active now. Teaching. Sharing the memories she carried in ways the Kelthrii said hadn't happened in millennia. The colonists grew accustomed to seeing her in the sky, her crystalline scales catching sunlight as she flew for the first time in centuries. Children would point and wave. She would circle overhead, and though she never spoke directly to humans besides Lily, everyone felt like she was watching over them. Humanity had made first contact. Not through war. Not through grand displays of military might or technological prowess. Not through calculated diplomacy or carefully planned initiatives. But through a child's compassion and a grandmother's curiosity. Through simple kindness extended to a being in pain. Calren would later tell the Galactic Council in a speech that would be remembered for generations, "We found them small. We found them young. We found them fragile and new to the stars. But we also found them kind. And in a universe that often rewards cruelty, that so frequently celebrates strength over mercy, that matters more than they know. Perhaps more than we knew before we met them." The 13,000 ships remained in human space. A fleet that had come to mourn now stood as guardians, teachers, and friends. They said they would stay for a generation. Maybe longer. Until humanity was ready to stand on its own among the stars. And it all began with eye drops meant for lizards, and a little girl who couldn't bear to see suffering, no matter how alien the eyes that suffered.